Hey folks, the Comics Kid 2099 here, and I'm back in the routine of talking about an episode of a superhero animated series on every Saturday. Today I'll be talking about the Batman Beyond Season 2 episode Zeta. If you don't want no spoilers, then be gone, as I will be spoiling everything here. But if you don't mind spoilers, then stick around, and I'll quickly sum up the episode before I get into my thoughts. Terry and Max's teacher turns out to be a robot named Zeta that was created by the government to replace humans and hunt down terrorists, but has stopped obeying orders and is now hiding in Gotham, where the NSA is hunting it down. Batman doesn't trust the robot, but also doesn't want the NSA harming innocent people while trying to catch it. The robot holds Max hostage, and she is able to convince him that he doesn't have to kill in order to escape his programming and his creators, which is all he really wants to do. With a little help of Batman, Zeta is able to get away from the NSA agents, presumably to form a new life. Now, I am aware that about a year after this episode aired, Zeta got his own TV series, but since I never saw an episode of the Zeta Project, I'm only reviewing this episode as an episode of Batman Beyond, which unfortunately means that I don't look on this episode very favorably. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing hideously wrong here, it's just that this is very clearly a backdoor pilot to a show that I haven't seen. It's almost like hearing the beginning of a joke, and then the person who tells the joke walks away before you can hear the rest of it. And you might say this wasn't intended as a backdoor pilot, and that people just really took to Zeta, and so the studio wanted to capitalize on that. Sort of like how Angel became immensely popular in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and got his own show 3 years after Buffy began. But he was never intended as a spin-off. But Zeta's own show came less than a year after this episode aired, and when you consider how long it takes to make an episode, I'm very certain that this was intended before the episode even aired to be a tease for the Zeta Project TV series. Aside from this being set up for a payoff that I never got to see, the big reason I'm just not a huge fan of backdoor pilots is that it takes away from the real reason the audience is here, mainly to see Batman. What does Batman do in this episode? Not a whole lot of anything, really. He chases after Zeta and he is incredulous about his change of heart, but he doesn't actually do much of anything here. As a matter of fact, none of the characters actually do a whole lot here, not even Zeta, who we're supposed to get to know enough that after a few months down the line, we'll be wanting to watch his own show. If this episode absolutely had to exist and it wasn't going to focus on Batman, you know, the reason we're watching, then at least the focus of the future spin-off should have gotten something to do. In theory, this episode should have been all about Zeta, a killer robot, coming to the understanding that he doesn't have to follow his programming and he can do whatever he wants. That theme is spelled out at the beginning of the episode when Zeta is teaching Terry and Max's class, but the problem is that Zeta has already gone through that character arc before the episode even begins. And the problem with this is that this is a character arc that would be hard to squeeze into 22 minutes, but I could see it being done. It helps that Zeta is a robot and not a human being, because I don't think any storyteller could make this character arc work for a human being. But a robot like Zeta, if we had actually seen him realize his target was innocent and see him struggle with his programming, this episode might have worked. But then that brings us back to the problem of this series allegedly being about Batman, and if that had been the episode, it would have been mighty hard to squeeze Batman in there. Admittedly, Batman hardly has anything to do in this episode anyway, but I doubt the people making the show would have wanted an episode completely divorced from the setting and characters of the show. Now, I should add that I don't have to have Batman be at the center of every episode. In Batman the Animated Series, also by the same folks who brought us Batman Beyond, some of the episodes I enjoyed the most don't focus on Batman, like Joker's Favor or It's Never Too Late. But the key difference is that those episodes, even though they don't focus on the guy whose name is in the title of the series, their goal, first and foremost, is to tell a story. But that ain't what's going on here. The goal of the episode Zeta is to be a 22-minute commercial for the upcoming spin-off. It becomes much less about the art and more about the money being brought in by the product. And what's terrible is that the art could have at least been okay while the episode was still all about the commercialism, but it doesn't even succeed at that. So overall, not the brightest moment for this series. But it's not all bad, because next week I'll be talking about Batman the Animated Series once again, and the week after that I'll be talking about another episode of Batman Beyond. So I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you did like it, then maybe you'll be interested in checking out my other videos that I do throughout the week. Until then, I'll see you guys in the future. Take care.